Here's what you're missing over at patreon.com/addressinggettysburg.
From the Gettysburg Museum of History Studios, you're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg, our Patreon recording session here. And today, you know how we like to talk about, obviously, the Battle of Gettysburg and American history and other things like that. And once in a while, we like to step out of the Gettysburg area. And within the Gettysburg area, we've talked to many of the actors from the movie Gettysburg. And I like movies, of course. I like film, television shows, things like that. Fascinated by it. Always kind of wanted to get involved in it, but just, this thing kind of gets in the way. And so I never really did. And for those of you who are just listening on audio only, I was pointing to my face. So I like to talk to actors. I find it very fascinating how they do that. And besides Gettysburg, one of my other favorite military shows or movies is Band of Brothers. And thanks to our buddy Erik Dorr here at the Gettysburg Museum of History, we've got one of the actors from Band of Brothers on the show with us today. And he played Sgt Talbert, and his name is Sir Matthew Leitch of the Shires, I believe, is how he said it. How you doing, Matthew?
I'm good. Sir. How you doing, sir?
Oh, excuse me. How are you doing, sir?
I'm very well, thank you, subject. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure. You don't really have to call me sir. That's going to get tedious for the audience very quickly.
Yes, it will. It will. Of course, we're joking there. But yeah, so thank you very much for coming on and doing this here. You've got a lot of stuff going on in your life now with, you got two little ones, you said. One of them got you sick. You're not feeling very well. I appreciate you doing this.
Healed myself off the floor for this, actually. I was half asleep and my alarm kept going off. Yes, I have a 3-week-old little boy now. I have a 4-year-old girl who goes to school, which is just an incubator of filth and disease. Oh, yeah. So I have some hallucinogenic virus that's making me feel very trippy.
Great.
And I also have a 17-year-old son as well.
Wow, look at you. Good for you.
Look at me.
I've got, I have none. So.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I forgot to grow up.
Yeah, me too, until I got to about 31, and then I did it really, really quickly.
Right. So I'm only starting to grow up now, and I realize at 45, it's a little too late to start, Yeah. Yeah. So next life, maybe.
Yeah.
So, all right. So obviously we're going to talk about Band of Brothers, but first let's talk about We Happy Few.
Okay.
What is that?
Right. So it was a COVID thing that started it, actually. So I was on tour in Bastogne a few years ago, and I met a fella by the name of Leighton Hughes, who ran a online thing called Currahee Signings. So he would reach out to all the members of Band of Brothers, all the cast members, and say, do you want to make a bit of money signing pictures of yourself? And I was like, okay. So we met up in a pub and I signed some pictures of myself, but it just didn't seem like enough. I was like, people are paying for this? Yeah. Seems like a very easy service.
Sure.
So I had this idea of like doing it on Zoom because we were in COVID. So I was like, just send me some stuff and I'll sign it on Zoom and I'll like, hey, to people and stuff. And I don't know where it came about, but somewhere in between that idea came the idea of maybe we could get some of the other cast members on and just have a little chat on Zoom. And then that spiraled to let's do cast reunions on Zoom. So we put it together and we did episode 6 first. So we got Shane Taylor, who plays Doc Rowe, and we got Lucy Jean, who plays the nurse, Renée Lemaire. Oh, yeah. And we got the director as well. We managed to get hold of the director, although we couldn't keep him awake through the whole episode, nodding off, which is hilarious. David Leland.
What was there, like a time difference or something? Or?
No, it was no time difference. He was in London. I think he's just super old now. He just kept nodding off. I think his wife kept coming in and poking him awake as well. And so we did like this live thing, and we kind of sold tickets, and it was huge. Like hundreds of people showed up. because I guess it was COVID and they had nothing else to do.
Yeah, true.
So then what we did from there is we just went through all the episodes in no particular order. So we did like episode 7, and we got Donnie Wahlberg on, and it was mad. We just like, everybody said yes. Michael Cudlitz came on for episode 4, directors and producers and the writers. Of course, you can't get the writers to shut up. But
it's their moment in the sun.
Let someone else answer. And then, unfortunately, then we leapt onto the Pacific, and we got a bunch of the Pacific guys on. And then we sort of ran out of episodes. So I came up with the idea of maybe we should do some stuff live, because COVID was dying down then. So we went to Eindhoven and did a sort of half event, half tour.
Wow.
So like an on-stage Q&A, and then a day doing some of the Easy Company sites, which was moderately successful. But I think the cool bit of it was the tour.
What do you consider moderately successful?
It was successful in numbers. I just didn't think it worked.
Oh.
I thought we could have done more of the history and get the guys more involved and stuff. And we took the fellow that played Dukeman, Mark Lawrence, out to where Dukeman was killed and stuff. And that was very emotional for him and everybody involved. And I thought, that's the touchstone. Getting a bunch of guys on stage to answer questions is not the touchstone.
Yes.
The touchstone is seeing these guys in situ, what it means to them, getting people back to, we then latterly took Tim Matthews to Pancala's grave in the Luxembourg American Cemetery, and he'd never been, and that sort of thing really meant something. So we then started to focus on that, and less sort of, Comic-Con-y style, get up on stage and sign some stuff and talk about being an actor. It was much more to do with the actual people they played and paying homage and going to the sites and stuff. And that is how we then built the tours from then on in. And now sort of our buddy Erik Dorr's involved as well now. And we're going to Berchtesgaden this weekend to see some stuff down there.
Yeah, I'm very jealous. That sounds so cool.
Yeah. So that's sort of how it happened, and the page sort of has grown, and we've got sort of sponsors on board now, like, cool American dudes like our friends at SDHQ, Ryan at SDHQ, have just come out and said, yeah, we'd like to support that. I think it's really cool. So it's just kind of grown and grown, and it's been an absolute pleasure. So it's a real pleasure to do. And as the curator of it, I'm like, I've got a little bit of imposter syndrome, because I don't know about half the stuff. Do you know what I mean? So I have to keep posting people to like ask this guy. He knows what he's talking about. Yeah. So fortunately, we do get really good historians on board as well. I mean, I'll happily answer the questions when people are like, what crop is that out of the window, which we get on the bus, or where the toilet's at, or what time to lunch. I'm happy with that. But the history, I get real historians in for
You're
that.
An expert on lunch and toilets.
I'm an expert on eating lunch in the toilet, but that's because I went to an all-boys boarding school.
Right.
I was only 4 feet tall.
You got to eat where you can.
Exactly, and when you can.
Yeah. So you've been doing We Happy Few. It's a podcast too, though. It's not just the tours, right?
Yeah. We run a podcast as well, which we sort of subtitled The Nearly Men. It's me and Doug Allen, who plays Alton Moore. So we do a podcast once a week as well.
And do you have fun doing that? I mean, you must if you're doing it.
Yeah, we do. I mean, it's spiraling all over the place. We just had Catherine Weiler on the last one we did, whose father, William Wyler, he was like a Hollywood legend of the golden era. I mean, he directed Ben-Hur, he directed Wuthering Heights.
I know that name.
Memphis Belle. She came on. We've got Richard Burton's niece coming on the next one. It's just like,
really,
it's the playground for Leighton, who's the producer. It's this crazy Welsh dude. He's my business partner in it. It's just his playground. So like he gets these guests of stuff he's obsessed with and then just throws it at me, and I have to host it. I'm like going through Wikipedia and books and IMDb and coming up with all these questions and stuff. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Do you know Brian Mallon?
I don't know.
He's an actor. He was in the movie Gettysburg. He played one of the generals. He's in Ireland. I think he's going to be out here this weekend. But I think he played Richard Burton in some play out in London not too long ago. Yeah, I could hook you up if you want to have him on.
Yes, I'd love to.
Okay.
I mean, I have a Burton impression, but I'd love to talk to someone who has a really good Burton impression. Because you know, like in The Longest Day.
Yeah.
So it's an ensemble film, and I'm not sure that Burton really grasped the idea that he was going to be in a part of an ensemble.
Right.
Rather than the star of this movie.
Right.
So, forgive me if this sounds terrible, but what I love about Burton's dialogue in that film is that he strings it out for as long as he possibly can to be on screen for as long as he possibly can. So there's this scene in the bar where the guy runs in. He's like, Johnny, do you know where Dave is? And he goes, yes. At the bottom of the ocean. Okay, over Kelly. He got out, but his chute never opened. And just the whole... His whole dialogue,
pretty good.
The whole film. Oh, thanks very much.
Yeah, that is good. Yeah. Now, so I don't know if Brian ever did an impression or if he just played it, as himself, being Richard Burton or whatever. But because I never saw it. But I'll put you in touch if you want. Maybe you can have him come on. I'm sure he would like to do that.
Wonderful.
So, all right. So, Band of Brothers. Well, first of all, you. Before we get to it, you. When did you start acting? How old were you when you started acting?
Well, to the great joy of my father, who was in fact a paratrooper, I went to drama school age 19 and didn't join the army.
Uh-huh.
He told me that it was pronounced soldier, son, not actor. I went to drama school age about 19 in London. I did 3 years at drama school, and then I came out and I went straight into a show on Nickelodeon. And this is Nickelodeon UK.
I was going to say, okay.
Nick USA, although they were going to revamp the show over there. So Nick UK is the most rinky-dink tin pot establishment.
Okay.
And I was in a show called Renford Rejects, which it was about, I was supposed to be like a soccer star. And I break my leg in the first episode and then go on to manage a team of terrible football players. It was like a comedy.
Right.
And it went on for like 3 seasons. And then actually went on for 4 seasons. I left after the 3rd season. I didn't want to do it anymore. And then I did a movie, and it was like an independent movie where the lead actor he dropped out a week before shooting. So they called me in and said, did I want to be in it? And I auditioned and I did it, and it was the same casting director that was casting bit parts on Band of Brothers, and he called me in to read for a character called Dietrich, who is actually in episode 1, but has almost been entirely cut out because the entire of episode 1 was reshot.
Okay,
and Dietrich's story mirrored the Winter story, except Dietrich at one point his chute doesn't open. I won't say that like Richard Burton. His chute doesn't open and he hits the floor. And I auditioned to play that character. And actually the guy that played it was quite a big actor who was in U571. He was one of the leads in U571. The big guy.
All right. I'll look it up while you're talking.
Yeah. And instead, when I was reading for it, Tony Toe, who was the producer, said, "Oh, the way you're doing that, we'd quite like you to read for another character." And that character ended up being Sgt Talbert, but I was like, no, I just want the part that you're offering me, please. But I did end up playing Talbot, who's in the show way more. But what was funny about the weird transition between doing Renford Rejects and doing Band of Brothers was that Phil Arlen Robinson, who directed Field of Dreams, also directed the first episode of Band of Brothers. Well, the original one that was then totally recut. Mm-hmm. I think I have the original somewhere. Oh,
I'd love to see that.
And yeah, me too. I can't remember what I did with it. That's my retirement, I think, fund right there. So the first day of shooting, we all sort of mustered in this massive aircraft on Hatfield Aerodrome, where it was all shot. And everybody was in, all the cast, and everybody was in this huge hangar. And all these big actors, you got David Schwimmer there, Michael Cudlitz, who I loved, Mark Warren, obviously Damian Lewis, although he wasn't famous at the time. Everybody's in there. And at one point, the aircraft hangar doors slide open, and in walks Phil Arlen Robinson, the director, with his sort of little entourage. But he's got his son with him. Now, it just brought him down on set. Now, Phil Allen Robinson is married to an English girl. So his son grew up in England.
Listen to the rest of this interview and dozens like it. Support the show and get early access to special episodes, early and discounted ticket sales, and more. The second lieutenant level and above gets access to all monthly Patreon episodes. So please go to patreon.com/addressinggettysburg, choose a tier, and join. And I thank you in advance.